Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Welcome to Sunday Night History Chat. Thank you for joining me here in my library. My name is Michael. This is Isabella. We're going to be chatting here in just a few minutes about some really exciting and upcoming events and us being on the road. And we're going to be talking a little history and all of those good things, much like we do just about every Sunday night here on Sunday Night History Chat. Hope everybody is doing well. I've not been many places this week. I've been doing a lot of writing about airplanes and having a really, really good time doing it. Working on that project, trying to get it done. Drop us a note. Let us know where you're watching from this evening. Check in with us, and we'll get started here in just a couple of minutes. No, we were not out time traveling this past weekend. We were just hanging out, getting ready for this big trip that we're getting ready to take really soon. Have no other real engagements unless you live locally. You can join us down at the Crossnor Meeting House this upcoming Thursday on June 6th at
6:30?
6:30,
right?
Elizabeth?
Yeah, 6:30.
6:30 p.m. and hear a special performance from Isabella's upcoming National History Day program. And we're going to be talking a little bit about this evening about National History Day, and then we're going to jump into a little discussion about Tom Dooley, or Dooley, and just one of those interesting conversations and about history and local history and national history, and something that had an impact. Something that happened really close by here that had a global impact. I want to say good evening to the Colemans and Jason Lloyd and my friend Bill Hicks and Bobby Goodson and Adam and Robert. Hope everybody is doing really well out there. If you want to drop a line in or something, let us know what you're doing, what's going on, what exciting history things you have done this past week or you have coming up in the next week. So we on upcoming Saturday, this Saturday, are headed to the National History Day competition. And Isabella is competing in National History Day. We're really excited, and it's kind of sad too. Isabella has been doing History Day for the past 7 years, and in a remarkable feat, she has gone to Nationals 7 times. We're still trying to figure out if other kids have done that. We're not sure. But she's gone to Nationals all 7 times. She won her category once. National History Day is a national program. There are over 600,000 students who compete every year. And then there are going to be 2,800 students on the campus of the University of Maryland starting a week from today. And we are really, really looking forward to that. So National History Day, the way it works, do you want to talk about it or you want me to?
I can talk about it.
Okay.
So National History Day is a competition for middle and high school students. And even though it is called National History Day, it's actually international. There are teams from all over the world. And how it works is that there is about 3 to 4 levels of the competition, depending on what kind of school that you're at. And to compete, you choose a project from one of the 5 project categories. And those categories are exhibit, documentary, website, paper, and performance. They can all be either individual or in a group, except for paper, which has to be individual. And then from there on, depending on how it relates to the theme, which this year's theme is Turning Points in History, you can choose any historical topic you want and present about it. At the regional level, which is the first level if you don't have a school competition, if you have a school competition, that goes first. But at the regional level, the first, second, and third best projects in each category advance to the state competition. At the state competition, the best first and second projects in each category advance to nationals. There's also a third place runner-up placed in case first or second can't go. These students form the affiliate team, which will compete at the national contest. So the national contest, which starts in 1 week, will bring in students from all over the world to compete. and see what all history topics they can come up with that relate to turning points in history.
And I will say, having judged both the regional and the state level, the topics run the gamut of, ancient history subjects, all the way through, 20th century topics. Just about anything that you could think of could be a topic for a National History Day category. So this year, Isabella chose
The turning point of the American folk music revival. So the title of my project is Hang Down Your Head and Cry, the turning point of the American folk revival, and it is a senior individual 10-minute performance.
That's right. So Isabella has 10 minutes to tell this story, and we're probably going to take a little bit longer than 10 minutes before. Now, many of you know that I have talked about Tom Dooley over on the Looking for the Confederate War blog. In fact, there's a standard post every time this image right here gets put up someplace. I will just share this post right here and say, this is not Tom. But this image has been on the front of books and museum exhibits and posters and Civil War trail markers. And this is not Tom. So you can go check out that post in a little bit. And we're going to talk about Tom here for just a few minutes. To be honest, without the song, this would probably not even be a footnote in history. It just was one of those tragic events, love triangle events, and without the song, it never probably would have made history book, because there are events like this that take place all over the place. Now, Thomas C. Dooley was born June 22nd, 1945 in Wilkes County, North Carolina. 1845. What did I say?
1945.
Well, I've been stuck in the 19 somethings. June 22nd, 1845. He was just a kid when the war came along. He was born in Wilkes County, North Carolina. He was just a kid. And then when he turned old enough, he enlisted in Company K of the 42nd North Carolina Troops, was mustered in as a private, and then became a drummer. He was in the hospital several times, and he was captured during the during the Battle of Point Lookout, Maryland, on June 11th. No, he was captured at Wise Fork on March 10th, 1865, and imprisoned at Point Lookout, Maryland, on June 11th, 1865. And then he was eventually released from a prison. So, that's kind of his military service. He returns back to the Wilkes County area after the war and resumes a relationship with Ann Melton, who's married to James Melton, who also served in the 42nd North Carolina. He also takes up with a couple of other women, including Pauline Foster and Laura Foster and Carolina Barnes. And at some point, Tom Dooley contracted a venereal disease. We don't know if he got it in the Army or if he got it from one of these other people that he was having a fling with. But he would blame, who would he blame? Laura. He would blame Laura Foster for this. And they're all over there passing it around. On May 24th or May 25th, 1866, Tom presumably killed Laura, buried the body, and fled to Tennessee. He was captured in July of 1866. He was put on trial twice. Both times he was represented by Zebulon Baird Vance, governor of the state of North Carolina prior to this date. And both times he was convicted of murder. And he was hanged May 1st, 1868 in Statesville, North Carolina. And they brought him back, and he is buried near his home in Wilkes County. So all in all, once again, that story, not really newsworthy because it happened, unfortunately, a lot. But it's really remarkable local people will write ballads about things, events that took place. And there's a long list of famous murder ballads, including.
So ones include such as Pretty Polly, Oh Me Wise, and Banks of the Ohio are some of the most famous ones.
Yeah,
But ballads, and including murder ballads, have existed for hundreds of years. You can find
hundreds of
them in
years.
Old England and Old Scotland myth and lore.
Yep. And a lot of times those folks, as they were leaving the old country and coming to here to the colonies, they would bring a lot of those songs, the old ballads, with them. Yeah, I mean, we have a long history of taking interesting events and putting them to music. A lot of times we talk about how that's the way we told the news. Is we would take these songs from community to community. So that song was. Tom didn't write the song, but that song appeared. We don't actually even know when it appeared, but it was passed down through several families in this area, and in the late 19th century, we start to get people like Francis Childs who start to come in trying to capture some of the old ballads that had been brought over from Europe, from England, and places like that. So we have ballad hunters.
And they collected a lot of songs, and there's some books that you can find that are volumes and volumes of books of different versions of these songs. And I think that the first ones I found of Tom Dooley were around the turn of the century. Is when it kind of starts popping up. But there's many other murder ballads that you can find in books, and much older ones that descend from ancient ballads. So even though we call them child ballads, they're not the ancient ones, but they're very similar to these old English songs that had been lost. So ones such as the Twa Sisters, which might be the most famous of murder ballads.
So if you had never heard of some of these songs, get on there online and check them out. It's a part of our history. It's a part of our heritage. So there were a lot of people coming into the mountains from other places, and some local people as well. I've wrote about that on a local level, collecting these ballads. In the late 1930s, a couple, Frank and Ann Warner,
from New York.
He was actually born in Richmond, Virginia, wasn't he?
No, he was born in Chapel Hill.
He was born in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I should let the expert talk about this.
And but he had gone back up to New York, and he was actually the YMCA director for his area. And he and his wife, Anne, were both fascinated with folk music. And one time when visiting Chapel Hill, he was shown a lap dulcimer made by Nathan Hicks, by one of the professors there. And he really wanted one because this was the kind of instrument that like nobody had ever heard of. And it was this really niche instrument. So he contacted Nathan Hicks. And then in 1939, 39 or 38? 39, right?
Sounds good.
I think it's 39. Him and his wife go to Beech Mountain, North Carolina. And on their way there, they stop in Boone. And while they're there are all these cars and wagons parked outside of the courthouse. And so they go in to see what's going on, and it actually just happens to be a county sing. It's happening right there at the courthouse where people are singing in the courtroom. So after listening to that for a while, they continue to head on up to Beech Mountain.
I bet there were a few prisoners who sang in the courtroom too.
Yeah,
trying
probably.
to get out of
yeah. And then they head on up to Beech Mountain to meet Nathan Hicks and get the dulcimer from him. While they're there, they meet his daughter and his son-in-law, and his name was Frank Prophet. Now, Frank Prophet was also a dulcimer maker and a song singer, or a storyteller. There we go, a storyteller. And what's interesting about Frank is that his actual great-grandmother, or great-great, one of those, was actually knew Anne and Tom during the original case. So this song had been directly passed down in his family. So he plays this song for Frank and Ann Warner, and they write it down. And either in that visit or when they visit later in 1940, they record him with a Gaze recording machine, which was the most common of an early recording machine of that time period, along with many other songs from that area. So this song is recorded. It's documented now. Where does it go next? So it goes to Alan Lomax, who is a very famous song collector and writer, who mainly collects from the Deep South. He collects a lot of African American working songs and others, but he works a lot with Frank and Ann Warner to try and collect up some of these other songs from areas that he can't go to or he hasn't been to yet. So Frank Warner gives this song to Alan Lomax, and he publishes it in his 1947 book, Folk Song USA. In the 1950s...
We have a copy of that book, don't we?
Well, we have a later edition of a similar book that still has a lot of the same songs.
We talk a lot about books here on Sunday Night History Chat. Yeah.
So then in the 1950s, a group on the other side of the country called the Kingston Trio, which nobody has ever heard of, here's this old man singing this song at a folk festival. And they go to their library and they look it up in an old book, which most likely was Alan Lomax's Folk Song USA. And they're like, wow, this is a good song. And so they actually rewrite their own version of it. And it's released in 1958. This song hits the top charts and is number 1 for a few weeks and is in the top 10 for over a month. And this song starts this huge craze for murder ballads and for folk music, and this huge interest in it. And then this interest with it on the mainstream brings into light this kind of rebellious revival that's already been starting up with artists like Pete Seeger. And this is where artists such as Bob Dylan and Gene Ritchie and others kind of start really getting into becoming folk artists. And this music also gets mixed in with the hippie movement, or what else would you call it?
Oh, hippie movement.
Countercultural.
Countercultural. Oh, that's a great word.
So the countercultural movement. And this takes a huge craze all over the country. There are folk festivals happening everywhere. Musicians are showing up. And it's just this huge event going on that started by this one little song. And all sorts of songs and music are influenced by this. Now, it does start to die out in the late 1960s, but it's in the time that it was big, it was really, really important. And one of the most interesting things about some of these folk festivals, particularly the 1964 Newport Folk Festival, is that there's not only big artists such as Bob Dylan there, but there's also Frank Prophet. He's there as well. And there's actually a really neat video. If you want, you can look it up. And it is him singing I'm Going Across the Mountain at the 1964 Newport Folk Festival on the same stage that the famous video of Bob Dylan singing Mr. Tambourine Man was sung. So it's definitely a very interesting story.
It is. And the way that, you talk about the folk music influence revival dying out late 60s or early 70s, we get that dreadful stuff called disco. Just absolutely dreadful, even though there are some good music in the 70s. The folk music revival really has another uptick about 24 years ago, when we get a little movie called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And that really kind of kicked off this other folk music revival. And you can go to all kinds of concerts these days and check that stuff out. So how much money did Frank Prophet make?
He didn't actually make very much at first. And the reason was that no credit was given to him. So in the early 1960s, both Frank Prophet and the Warners actually sued the Kingston Trio for it. And after that, both the Warners and the Prophets received a part of the profits made from that recording. And something interesting about Frank Prophet is that after that was released in the early 1960s, he actually released his own albums of some traditional songs.
Mm-hmm.
But Frank never really got to see the full circle of it, as sadly he passed away in only 65.
Yes. So,
and he was fairly young at that time. So.
Fairly young at that time, and a common thing. So it's amazing. I will go ahead and say this. One of the things that Isabella has to do on the first round of nationals is answer questions from the judges. And so if you've got a question, please pop it in the box and we will take a stab at it. And
that's horrible.
I know that's
so
horrible,
bad.
Considering that, they stabbed poor Laura.
Stab poor Larry Foster and you're going to die.
That's right. So many of you have probably heard this song at some point or at some time in the past. Maybe you did not realize its connection to the 1860s or the importance of it. when the Kingston Trio released it in um, the 1950s, late 1950s. But it's never ceases to amaze me how history is so interconnected, and how it runs through all so many things. So Robert wants to know what inspired you to pick your topic each year.
So this year's topic is actually pretty unusual for me. In my past years of National History Day, my topics have been about everything from World War II civilian programs to the WASP, which were the Women Air Force Service pilots in World War II, to women scientists such as Mary Anning and Mary Somerville, and Wilhelmina Fleming, all of which I've done. So it's ranged very broadly. But this year, my last year, I decided to go out with a bang and do something that I've always kind of wanted to do, which is the history of music in my own area. And so I've always kind of known about the story of Tom Dooley, but when I really dove into the research for this year's project, it was very interesting to see all of its connections. But for each year, a lot of my projects, especially about women scientists, I actually just opened up like a Wikipedia list of women astronomers or women scientists and then just started clicking down the list and looking at each and every one. And that's where I found Wilhelmina Fleming and Mary Somerville and Mary Anning.
So all fascinating topics over the years that she has done. Great question there, Robert. Scott's talking about Leadbelly and Nirvana. And it's, I didn't really come from a musical family per se, even though I was really excited growing up because my grandmother used to always say that her uncle played with the Carters, meaning the Carter family. And I was really, really excited about that. Come to find out, my uncle was a little kid and he played with the Carter's little kids. He wasn't sitting on the front porch playing and singing. He was actually out there running around in the yard, playing with all of the other kids. So I was a little disappointed by that. But if you got other questions for me or Isabella, please drop them in the comment box, and we'll take a stab. There you go again at them and see what we can do. It's been fun on my part. Of course, I've been interested in old music, old timey music for a very, very long time. Like when Elizabeth and I were dating, our very first date, I actually had this, was it a cassette or a CD? It was a cassette tape playing in the truck of murder ballads, Banks of the Ohio and things like that. And she was really excited about that. So I knew that we were going, it was going pretty well. Even though she had to move the box of shotgun shells out of the truck seat. I didn't tell her the shotgun is still behind the seat in the truck because I'd been out bird hunting earlier that day. Got other questions? Drop them in the comments. Nick Cave Murder Ballads is a great contemporary album along the same lines. We'll have to check that out. We have a host of, especially murder ballads on CDs, and traditional songs. And when I mean traditional, this is really pre-bluegrass, like old string music with clawhammer banjos and fiddles. And a lot of it is a cappella. The old timers would just sit on their porch and sing as they broke beans or something like that. It's just really cool stuff.
Actually, in my performance, I actually do play an instrument. I play a traditional Appalachian lap dulcimer, which, once again, was what Nathan Hicks was actually coming up there to do. That's a little bit easier, I think, to learn a song on rather quickly than banjo. As someone who has never played banjo before, who knows a little bit about lap dulcimer.
Yep.
But it's definitely been very interesting so far at the state level to talk about the lap dulcimer. But I'm really interested to see what happens with questions at the national level to judges who have maybe never heard of this before.
Brian Duckworth is saying that you can visit Laura Foster's grave. You can also visit Tom Dooley's grave. If you go, and we were actually there a couple weeks ago, you can go to the Wilkes County Museum and actually visit the jail cell that Tom Dooley was incarcerated in for several months. That is I mean, those are all places that you can visit to this day. And check out the story of Otto Wood.
Mhm.
He wasn't really a ballad singer, but he broke out of numerous jails. His story is also tied to that Wilkes County jail as well. I'm sorry. Yeah, Babyface. Well, Babyface George Nelson was not there, but yes, Otto Wood is kind of like that. I mean, you can even head up to, I think it's Zineville Baptist Church, and visit the grave of Grayson. If you remember the ballad, it talks about how um, that Dooley would have, or Dulo or Dooley would have escaped had it not been for Grayson. And he's buried on Colonel Grayson. And I actually wrote a blog post about him too a while back. You can visit his grave as well. So
Hadn't
lots
have
of
been for
things.
Grayson, I'd have been in Tennessee.
That's
Except
right.
for he already was in Tennessee.
Except he already was in Tennessee. So of course the ballad is, a little off in some places,
More than
uh,
a little.
but that's okay. Bobby Goodson wants to know, what are your future plans? So Isabella is a high school graduate right now. She just graduated from high school. When you homeschooled, it's kind of an anticlimactic thing. But
Yeah, it's just like, hey,
hey, you're
you're a
done
graduate
now.
now.
You're done now.
So I'm going to be staying at Mainland Community College for the next year, finishing actually my associates in science. And then I'm hoping to transfer to a 4-year to get a degree in wildlife biology and maybe a minor in history. And I would hope to go into a career with either teaching or being a park ranger.
So I think she'll hang out in the history world there with us a little bit. She loves it, even though you see us in a lot of different time periods when we go to our living history events and volunteer at museums and historic sites. What's your favorite time period?
1770s and 1940s are both
Yes.
kind of hand in hand there.
Yes. So we hang out a lot of really cool places. So if you got any more questions, please drop them in the comments and let us know what you think. And maybe Isabel and I will get together and do some more topics here in the near future. I'm not so sure we'll be live next week. We'll have to see how that works out and how our internet signal is next week, as we'll probably be done at the University of Maryland campus by this time, by 8:30. But who knows? Maybe it'll be good and we can chat.
So just a little bit about the actual national competition. So the national competition itself runs Sunday to Thursday. So Sunday is just check-in day, kind of figuring out where your stuff's going to be. And then Sunday night, we have the pep rally, which is crazy and super fun. We even have a song for National History Day called You and Me Love a Whole Lot of History. It's very fun. And one of the fun things with National History Day is that each state has a button. I didn't bring any of mine down. And the affiliates, and then you actually trade it. No, it's okay. And you trade and you try and get everyone else's affiliate buttons. Monday is when all of the junior, which is middle school division, go. So they do their first round. Then Monday night, the performance and documentary students, which have to present their project live, will know whether or not they made runoffs. Tuesday is when all the seniors go. And then Tuesday night, the seniors find out if we advance to finals or not. And then the juniors actually go in their runoffs Tuesday night. The Wednesday morning is senior runoffs. And then Wednesday as a day kind of has a really fun opportunity. And this is called the National History Day Showcase. So certain divisions and certain projects are selected to present on the mall. So there's usually ones for documentary students that happens. I think that one's usually at the Museum of African American History. There's also boards. They select a board from each state to present at the Museum of American History. And then there's also papers that present to the White House Association. This year, for the first time in a while, they are doing a performance showcase. This year's story or kind of topic with that, because a lot of times they have kind of a theme that you want to be running on to be in the showcase, is Untold or Undertold American Histories. And out of 200 projects entered, only 14 were selected. And my project just happens to be one of them. So sometime on Wednesday, the 12th afternoon, I will be presenting at the Museum of American History in their hall. No, it is the 12th. At their hall of music history, which I think is on the 3rd floor if you're in the DC area.
Yeah, if you're in the DC area, come check out Isabella on
Wednesday,
June 12th, sometime in the afternoon.
I'll get my specific times when I sign in on the 9th. And so we'll see then. And then Thursday is the award ceremony, which is super fun because how it starts is that all of your affiliate teams were all wearing matching t-shirts, and you get flags and banners, and you march around like the Olympics. So you march around their basketball stadium. And then the award ceremony commences, which is really fun. Everyone gets to run up and get their medals, and it's really cool.
Really, really cool. And this is the 50th anniversary of National History Day. I didn't know about it when I was a kid. That would have been awesome. Isabella or Elizabeth did know about it and actually competed in her junior and senior year there in high school. Misty and Nathan Coleman want to know, Isabella, if you could learn about any topic more thoroughly, historical topic, what would you choose?
That's a hard question. It's difficult sometimes not to just want to suck up all of it. I would say that something, and this is kind of an interest that is, 2 interests actually, that are kind of on the sidelines that can become more focused after National History Day. But those would probably be, first of all, the Victory Corps in World War II. Which maybe we'll have to jump on another time and talk about that, because that's a whole different project and I don't have notes in front of me. But that's a very interesting one that there's nothing written on it. And so we're all having to do the research by hand and just from primary sources. And the other would probably be just a little bit more about the personal life of Annie Oakley, because that is one of the other programs that I do. And there's lots written on her performing life, but really not that much on her personal day-to-day life.
Yep. A lot of stuff, even though there are several books on Annie Oakley, which I think we own all of. There's still a lot of research that needs to be done. Isabella is actually reading a book right now on
women war correspondents in World War II.
Yep.
So it's called The Correspondence, and it's about 6 women journalists on the front lines.
Yep. So
it's very interesting, and the author actually goes by date. So we actually don't start yet in World War II. We're actually starting out in the Civil War in Spain in the late 1930s, which just kind of lead into World War II, and that's a hard question if you technically classify that as a part of World War II or not. So
I don't know
I don't know the answer to that either, because it kind of does spiral into it. So
I don't know. We'll have to think about that. But any other questions, please drop them in the box and let us know what's going on. And we'll take a stab at them. Otherwise, we're going to sign off and stop stabbing people.
Yeah.
Stabbing, as the old timers might say.
That's what she says in the performance. That's what I do say in the performance.
Yep.
So in my performance, I can do a little bit more about the actual format of it. So I have about 3 characters that I switch in between. And one of the most important parts of the performance category is that you can't have help from anyone else. It has to all be done by yourself. You have to haul in and set up the set, and you have to also be able to break down the set in less than 5 minutes. So it's always a little huffing, puffing, trying to get everything up and done.
It's a challenge.
It is. So my 3 characters are my narrator, which is a made-up character, but is very similar to a lot of people that I have met at folk music camps. She is modern, and she's setting the context. My next character is actually Bessie Hicks Prophet, who was Frank Prophet's wife and the daughter of Nathan Hicks. And interestingly, for local people or other people who might know it, the older sister of Ray Hicks, the famous storyteller. So you can kind of see that there, how that's all connected as well. And then my next one is a 1960s kind of rebellious teenager folk revival kid talking about the influence of it. And then I go back to my narrator to wrap it up.
Pretty cool. So we will probably be posting a link so you can see that performance next week or the week after or sometime. We actually have one, but that we recorded not long ago, but it's not live yet. And we will, we'll be doing that soon.
Maybe we can get a stream it from inside the Smithsonian. Might not be much signal in there.
I don't know. We'll see.
That'd be cool.
We'll see how that goes. Do I know much about the wartime history of Spanish Fort in Alabama? No, I do not. I do know that the 29th North Carolina surrendered at Spanish Fort, Alabama at the end of the war, and that there's a second national that probably belonged to them that was surrendered there. But I don't. But that's a great question. And maybe soon when I get back to blogging, we will dive into that and look at some more things along those lines. But I haven't done that recently. I've been stuck in I was actually working on airmail earlier today, the beginnings of that. So that's where I am. Lots of interesting things and historical things out there all tied together. So if you have any more questions, drop them in the box. Otherwise, we're going to sign off for the evening. We'll hang out here for another couple minutes. And then
Jeopardy waiting music.
I don't know. We could get flagged for that.
No. That copyright infringed?
I'm sure it's copyrighted somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a great question. Any other questions, please drop them in the box. And then otherwise, we're going to jump off of here for the evening.
What would be the history Jeopardy waiting song?
I don't know. That's a great question. We'll have to come up with
History
one.
Day theme
Maybe
song?
we'll write one.
You and me love all
That's right.
history.
All right, folks. I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for joining us here on Sunday Night Live. Watch the page on Facebook, and we will announce where we think we'll be able to go live next Sunday or night from someplace in Maryland. And the award ceremony is streamed. We'll try and drop a link on that as well.
And if you're interested in helping a little bit on our trip,
That's right.
we do have a GoFundMe page.
There's a GoFundMe page.
So if you go to either Dad's page or Mom's page and you scroll down until you see the post about my National History Day project, there will be a GoFundMe link in there if you would like to help a little bit with a week-long trip to Maryland, because that's not cheap.
No, not cheap whatsoever. No. But thank y'all so much for joining us here on Sunday Night History Chat. Keep us in your prayers as we travel. Driving in DC is always fun. But just we're going to have a blast. Maybe get over to the National Archives for a day and go check out some museums and just have a great time. Thank you so much for joining us here on Sunday Night History Chat. I look forward to seeing y'all all again really soon. And remember, keep digging, keep researching, keep just sharing that history. Y'all have a great evening and God bless.